Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, great to see you. Thank all the witnesses here. That's only going to work, though, is if people have the freedom to access that, and we reform the broken model of the gatekeeper of the FDA, a completely risk-averse process. You know, my daughter was born with transverse great arteries. Two things I learned very quickly, not being a doctor, is there's a reason they call it medical practice, with an emphasis on practice. And that's not denigrating the field. That's what medicine is all about, advancing it through a series of trial and error. The other thing I learned very quickly is there were centers of excellence. Now, I had the freedom back in 1983 to access those centers of excellence and then find the most advanced surgical technique, which was still experimental, for my daughter's condition. It was an atrial rebaffling. My daughter's 32 years old. She's doing tremendously well. Now we do the actual aorta switch. It's advanced. Coming from a manufacturing background, I'm looking at the root cause. And because of thalidomide, I understand why the FDA is so unbelievably risk-averse. But when you are so risk-averse, and when you do not give patients the freedom to choose, I think we are going to really hamper medical advancement and moving toward these cures. And listen, I think it's a great X prize, and that's great, but a $10 million prize is not going to incentivize breakthroughs in something that literally costs hundreds of millions of dollars to develop. The prize really is a free market system. And so we need to let that free market system operate without the impediments of spending $100 million, get to phase 3 and go, cutting it off because it's not worth the risk. So, Dr. Coburn, I want to talk to you because you said we have to move the power back to patients and doctors. That's not the direction we're going in this country, is it?
No, but if you see what's really happening out there right now, especially in the field of cancer, which will be applied in so many other areas, actually, I'm getting a treatment product based on that very idea right now, is using an approved drug for something else, because we've found through precision medicine and biomarkers that it actually has application over here. FDA can't stop that. And so
today they can't.
But, well, they're not going to stop it,
okay,
because the uproar. But I'd make 2 points with you. Is FDA changed when the AIDS activists came and said change? All right? They demanded change. And you're seeing science move so far ahead of the FDA. FDA knows they can't keep up with this. They know that they don't have the capability. Janet Woodcock has actually said that. So the question then comes is, what do you all do in legislation that takes the monkey off FDA's back? They still are responsible, but makes them the collaborative, cooperative agency that they need to be. You can still punish bad actors, but you know, we're going to find out a whole lot more data by being freer with the process rather than tighter.
And the point I was trying to make is with those centers of excellence, let them be more involved in the process. Let the FDA cooperate with those centers of excellence for different diseases and let the process move forward.
That's right. And the great example right now is on biomarkers. They have not. You know, they have the ability under the law to go out and set up and have this collaborative process and bring everybody together and be transparent with it. And so that we actually find more and more information and share more information, but that isn't happening right now. So part of the hope with the 21st Century Cures is to actually give the FDA some relief. They need more money, I'll tell you that. They do, because we keep adding things to them to do, and yet their budget doesn't necessarily increase. So they do need more money to accomplish some of this. But also, if we transition to this collaborative process, where we take areas like University of California and San Francisco and let them be one of these collaborative, cooperative areas, then what happens is, in the long run, they'll have less budgetary needs because they're actually in cooperation. They can't go out and compete with the private sector on the best and the brightest. They can't compete with the universities, and they can't compete with the private sector. So they're not going to be able to do it. So the way to move forward is in a way where we actually assume that people are going to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. And we have an agency that's got everybody assuming that they're going to do the wrong thing. And that's a very expensive regulatory process.
I also want to ask your assessment of two other, I think, large dangers as it relates to advancement and innovation, and that's the medical device tax. which I think is a tax that literally is shipping jobs overseas, certainly restraining investment in medical device manufacturers, but also the Independent Payment Advisory Board. Those two aspects of Obamacare. Can you comment and give us your assessment of how those two measures are hampering innovation?
Well, we've already seen 40,000 to 50,000 jobs leave this country on medical devices. We'll see more because the burden and the taxation both are negatives for innovation and capital formation. So we don't know what the Independent Payment Advisory Board is going to do. But the fact is what you pay. Here's the other thing that I think is important in terms of new drugs. And Mr. Huber made this point, is some of the new drugs are going to be fantastically expensive. But if you measure in terms of the cost benefit to society, they're cheap. Because if they take an Alzheimer's patient and slow down the process to where they have 5 more years of active life in terms of inputting in society that's not costing society, it's a tremendous difference to us. And if you look at our overall budget picture, where we have unfunded liabilities of $142 trillion, that's where we are today, 42% greater than the entire net worth of the country, and we can make those kind of changes, we start seeing some way out. That's why Senator Cruz is calling for this hearing. You know, if we break through on diabetes, if we break through on Alzheimer's, if we break through on all these cancers, we break through on Parkinson's, the cost-benefit ratio is unbelievable to us as taxpayers, because most of the dollars, even with the Affordable Care Act, more and more of the dollars are going through the government. So it's to all of our benefit that we have an efficient regulatory process that encourages rather than discourages the development. It encourages collaboration rather than discourage. It encourages cooperation. And the assumption has to be, is we're all in this together. Let's see if we can't get some breakthroughs and then share it. And let's change, the other key point, you got to change not only the reimbursement pattern, but you got to change the intellectual property so that private capital comes into this. If you spend 10 years on a drug and your patent's running out and the market's X, you're going to say, I'm not going to the phase 3 trial because here's another, $30, $40, $50 million going into this drug, and I only have a year and a half left on the patent. They're just not going to do it. So we got to have intellectual property change so that we don't stop good stuff, even though Dr. Yamamoto can go back and look at their research if we're collaborative and figure out another way to use that same drug if it's safe.
And those are my main points. What's going to drive innovation are the benefits, the rewards of a free market system. We know that works. And the other point is, it is the gatekeeper, it's the roadblocks that federal government policies create for those innovators, for that free market capitalism. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Johnson.